Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to the review. This is another paid request, this time for Charles Turner. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, reviews, whatever it be, re-reviews, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. Now this is for Joyride from 2001, which I did not see in the theater, but I do remember picking up the DVD and being curious about it, because liking the trailer, and I like these road thriller movies. You have The Hitcher, which is my favorite, from 1986. Road Games I really enjoy. Duel I really enjoy. Breakdown with Kurt Russell. Now I would say I enjoy all those more than this, but this is still a good a movie in the tradition of those that I think did his job rather well. I think it's helped by a very good cast, pretty capable director by John Dahl, and especially the first half, I think it definitely has a good, solid pacing for a thriller. The second half, I don't think was as interesting as the first half, but I still think it was a rather solid, effective thriller. Pretty much, by the way, John Dahl, if you're wondering, he's the guy who directed Rounders with Matt Damon, among other movies. And yes, one of the writers is J.J. Abrams, but maybe it's better when he doesn't direct. So there's Paul Walker, may rest in peace. And Paul Walker was a guy that when I first saw him, I'm like, okay, pretty boy. He did fine in this. But as he went along, I think he got better, and I got to liking him a lot more. Especially you'll see in films like Running Scared and Hours. I think in the Fast and Furious films he got better. And, grew to really enjoy him. And that's why it was so sad and tragic when he passed away. And the way he did, it's just very sad. And I think Paul Walker does a rather good job as this guy, just, nice guy. He's in love with this girl played by Leelee Sobieski. She's recently broke up with her boyfriend. The semester at college has ended. They're going home. Paul Walker offers a ride. So he cashes in his airline ticket, buys a car, goes down. On the way, he's got to pick up his brother, who is Steve Zahn. Steve Zahn, I remember I first saw him in a film called Saving Silverman. I think that was the first one I saw him in. And I see this, is oh wow, okay, this is a different... He's still funny, he's still somewhat goofy, but at the same time it shows he can do serious bits as well. And I do think those are actually two of his better movies. And I like Steve Zahn, but I feel like the projects he's picked has not been the best throughout the years to best utilize his talents. That's just me. But he's a guy who gets arrested a lot. You can tell that maybe he's a guy that doesn't want to take responsibility, has not fully grown up yet. Like his younger brother, Paul Walker, seems he's grown up and gotten his crap together more than Steve Zahn has. So on the way, Steve Zahn gets this CB radio. They start messing around with it. And then there's a voice codenamed Rusty Nail. Voiced by Ted Levine. And I think that was the perfect casting. Because Ted Levine, Sounds of the Lambs. I love him in this film called The Mangler. Now, I read up apparently at one point Sylvester Stallone was talked about. That would have been interesting, because Stallone's never, it'd be his voice, but he's never voiced a character like that. I think there's early versions where it's Eric Roberts, which I think would have worked out, but I do think Ted Levine was the better choice. It just has that distinct tone. Candy cane. And Steve Zahn, he pushes Paul Walker, let's play a prank on him. I do a girl's voice. one thing leads to another. They get to a motel. You have this complete asshole who's a bit of a racist, railing, verbally on the worker, making fun of his race, bumping Steve Zahn, being a total prick. So Steve Zahn kind of pressures Paul Walker doing this joke where, yeah, this is Tandy Kane, and go to this room with a bottle of pink champagne. Come to find out, the next day, that's when shit hits the fan. And like I said, the first 45 minutes I thought was rather effective. In a way, if the first 45 minutes, because this is build up of these two brothers, one's irresponsible, one's got shit together, this prank that goes wrong, and the scary event that happens to the two brothers. And then they thankfully survive. One maybe's learned a little bit more, a little bit humble, piece of humble pie he's eaten. Now, going back a bit to get more into spoilers, I do think it's a well-directed movie. It's a good-looking film, especially when there are times where they're talking on CB and the neon lights, like the red, like when they pull the prank, you have this red neon light showcasing on them. I thought that was effective, and kind of like, okay, this is danger mode. Like, literally, this is danger mode that you're doing. Stop, go back. I thought that was a good-looking shot. I wonder if that was the intention. I mean, literally, they're doing something they should not do, and this red light's almost going, danger, danger, danger. I also like the scene, how it was directed, where they're in the motel room, and they're just listening, because the room is next door, and they both got their ears to it, and the camera slowly pushes into the wall, and this painting on the wall, as we're in our two leads' places, listening to what they're hearing, and then your mind fills up the image of what's going on the other side and what those noises meant. Was it a laugh? Was it a gasp? Was it something else? Also, the reveal of, you have this overacting cop with this toothpick. He was overacting quite a bit. Maybe I'll bring you over there. Maybe I'll refreshify your memory. I'm like, calm down, dude. That guy was like from a different fucking movie. Him and his toothpick. Refreshify. But yeah, I like the direction and the reveal where the camera's here, the cameras are walking up, and it's through like a reflection on the glass where we see that this guy, this asshole's jaw been ripped off. Like the horrified faces of the two, and then the reflection off the glass, and you see bits of it. I thought that was nicely shot. Again, Steve Zahn, he's a guy that won't grow up, and he's irresponsible. I like the scene where they're talking and Steve Zahn's talking shit. Just, hey, your voice on the radio is like, you should check, you should get that checked. What? Your taillight. And then it's this kind of like duel, like they're at a gas station. Is this the bad guy? Is it not the bad guy? Is this the trucker? Is it not the trucker? Now, I say that the first half is stronger because I do think it had, like I said, did a nice job building tension, did a nice job building a bit between these two brothers, and maybe you go further with either talking about past incidents or really much more Steve Zahn growing as a character, fully showcasing his growth, and that, he needs to be more responsible, he needs to think a bit more than he's been doing. In the second half, that's when you get to the reshoots, and this film had a lot of reshoots in terms of the script, and a variety of different endings. There's like 4, 5, 6 different endings. It's insane. And some of them are kind of similar, but there's little differences here and there. And there's, deleted scenes, scenes that were cut. Because they go meet Leelee Sobieski, and the three are on their way. They stop at a motel. Paul Walker gets a phone call, realize they've been watched, they leave, and that's when certain things kind of don't add up the best. Like, they try to bring up this thing, like maybe Steve Zahn's going to hit on Leelee Sobieski, and Leelee Sobieski looks like she's not 100% against that. And that's because apparently there was stuff and film, like they shot scenes where Steve Zahn and Leelee Sobieski got together. They shot scenes where, of course, Paul Walker and Leelee got together. A lot of that was cut out. So it felt like that was being brought up in the finished product, and that went nowhere. Because Steve Zahn, there's a bit where he's up close with Leelee, and then he goes to her motel room, and there's like a brief bit where Paul Walker is, yeah, why are you here? Why are you in this motel room? That's never brought. It's like it's brought up and then it's dropped as soon as it's brought up, and it made me go, well, why even bring it up in the first place? Plus, it does make Steve Zahn's character even more Stevie, like a bit too Stevie to me. Like, this is your brother's hopeful girlfriend. Like, really, you don't want to try to hit on her too? After all the shit you pulled. And again, that goes nowhere. And then when they get on the road, it's like, wow, thank God they got on that road, on that specific direction, and they weren't going the other way, or they weren't going this or this way, or they didn't turn this, or they didn't turn off that. And thankfully, Steve Zahn, instead of, he looked at the signs and specifically saw that it was spray printed, check your trunk. Because, believe me, there are some people that don't watch the signs, that don't pay attention. They're just paying attention to the road, or they're talking here, and, like, what if, he was talking here, or he was looking over here, and he missed all those signs? What if they had turned left or turned right? What if they'd gone back the other way? And then if they never checked the trunk, then you don't get the CB radio. Like, if it was something in the car, like sooner or later they check the glove department. Like, okay, sooner or later they check the glove compartment and they find a note. It's like, well, yeah, eventually, sooner or later, they don't check it. Whether it be 2 miles or 20 miles or 100 miles later, they'll check it. It's a glove compartment. Or maybe something else in the car, but I tell you one thing, there's going to be a lot of drivers going to be confused on that road as they go by and go, check their trunk, what the fuck? Okay, there's nothing in there. What the fuck, And then pretty much a friend of Leelee Sobieski's been taken. And then they're being told what to do. Steve and Paul are told to go naked in a diner. And then the scene really, drops. That's because this was what you see after it for the next 20, 30... Yeah, about 30 minutes is not what the original ending. I did, from the script to the final there was so many changes. And from what I understand the script, I think it ended with a much bigger scene. I think it ended with Steve Zahn's character getting to the truck and running down Rusty Nail. Which that would have been interesting, would have been a nice, how I put it, redemptive moment for Steve Zahn. And to be honest, when I watched the film, I prefer watching the alternate cut. So let me get into this. I'm not that great of an editor. But I edited an alternate cut of the film where on the DVD there are different endings, including like a 29-minute alternate ending. And when the DVD pops up and you click on that, the icon will appear, and if you click on it, it will skip you to that 29-minute alternate ending. I remember watching that going, man, this is better. Well, I think this ending is way better than the final product. There's no sequel bait ending. I thought the comeuppance was more satisfying. Yes, it's definitely a nod to Jaws, but I mean, hell, you say the whole movie's a nod to Duel, so why not also have a nod to Jaws as well? But I thought it was much more of a satisfying ending, especially the final bits with the characters and them talking to each other. I thought that was, again, much more of a satisfying finale for the characters that you've been following for a good chunk of the movie. Just the movie as is they go, like in the diner stuff stops. One at least they're in a cornfield. They get chased. Leelee gets taken. They find the CB radio in the car. They're told to go to this motel room with this champagne. They go there. Leelee is tied to a chair. There's a shotgun attached to the door. And Steve Zahn goes behind. And then you see more of Rusty Nail, which I thought was a mistake. Like, you see he's a big, fat, burly dude. And that you know what Ted Levine looks like. And I don't think you needed to see Rusty Nail. I think it works better. Like, in the alternate ending, you don't see Rusty Nail at all. Like, you really don't. You don't see him. You don't see what he looks like. In the ending we have, you see what he looks like. And I think it takes away a little bit of his power. Because you see that, oh, there's a guy that... big, overweight, dirty guy. And, like, you hear his voice, and it doesn't sound like Ted Levine. And he grabs Steve Zahn, and thankfully Paul Walker's opened the door as slow as possible. He's not kicking the door open. He's not barging in because his girlfriend's in trouble. You be going fast in this stuff. But it's going slow so that Steve Zahn can get the mouth off and then go, don't open the door. And then he has Steve Zahn stuck and his leg is impaled. And then Paul Walker has to go around and try to help Steve Zahn. And then the cops are come. Then Paul Walker's got to go all the way back in order to stop the cops so that they don't shoot Leelee by breaking the door open. And then Paul Walker's got to go all the way he goes all the way back. It's like Paul Walker going back and forth, back and forth. He goes back to try to help his brother. Then he goes back to stop the cops. Then he goes back to help his brother. And then the truck goes through. And then you think it's all over. And then they found a body. And the body was this other trucker from before. The guy who they thought was the bad guy earlier in the first half of the film. But it wasn't. It was just a guy driving this ice truck. Then they hear Rusty Nail's voice. And instead of getting a cop or anything else, they kind of sit there depressed. And then the movie's over. Very unsatisfying ending. It's a sequel bait ending. You don't really get much final moments with the characters. Like, you don't really get final moments with... It's pretty much them in a ambulance and they're breathing and they're trying to relax. But you don't get any final moments that built... Like, what has this built up between Steve Zahn and Paul Walker? What has this built up between Paul Walker and Leelee? You don't get that. It's just, boom, it's over. They're in the ambulance resting. There's the voice. Movie's end. Welcome to Joyride 2 and Joyride 3. Which didn't need sequels. And it didn't need a sequel bait ending. Maybe they were hoping to get a sequel. Maybe they're hoping that, well, if we get this ending, it's scarier. It's so much scarier. I'm like, no, it's not. And then I remember reading, there were pictures that I think Leelee's friend Charlotte is found dead and mutilated in a motel room. There's a picture of them looking at the body. And I think there's some endings with the motel room, but Rusty Nail is dead. When I watch it, I edit it as alternate. Like you watch the film as alternate ending. The way it starts is it's in the diner, but the scene keeps going in the diner. And the reason that diner bits happen is because the bad guy wants the two in there because it's pulling up behind Leelee Sobieski, and Leelee is able to warn them. And so Paul Walker, if you watch the trailer, some of this ending is in the trailer. Like a bit when Paul Walker's name comes up and he's running, that's from this ending. And he's running naked, and then like Steve Zahn driving, and like when Steve Zahn names pop up and he's driving the car, that's from this ending. You know, that bit in the trailer. And I think there's like a car flipping over in the trailer, that's from this ending. So Paul Walker's chasing after it. Steve Zahn throws him the clothes. He's driving. Car gets flipped over. They talk to the cops. They're dealing with the cops and also dealing with Rusty Nail. Go to this place. There's a fake body that says suicide. They think it's over. But they realize, no, something's up. Walton Goggins, who's been in a lot of stuff, including Predators and others, he's in this as well, the cops. They realize something's up. They find an ambulance that's been ambushed, and the Charlotte girl's alive. And pretty much Steve Zahn has to pretend to be a police officer while Paul Walker's getting into this truck. So to me, it's much more a redemption arc for Steve Zahn. It's much more Steve getting his moment to shine, getting his moment of redemption for the way he screwed up earlier in the film. So it's him pretend to be a police officer, which I thought was a bit fun. And also a bit ironic, because he's a guy who's been arrested by cops for a lot of his life. Now he's pretending to be a cop. And then it ends in the cornfield, which to me is a much more satisfying place to end it. It's much more of a chase around in the cornfield, being chased around. And then there's a tanker on the cornfield, hits it, and kind of like Jaws, Steve Zahn shoots, blows up the truck, kills the bad guy, and then you get to the hospital, and there's a moment between Steve Zahn and Paul Walker, and they're being friendly with each other, and they're being brotherly with each other. And there's a moment between Paul Walker and Leelee where they do kiss. Because there's a line earlier where Steve Zahn goes, "This is where you kiss the girl." This is like, I don't know, 50 minutes in or so. Well, that is in that to lead up to this scene where Paul Walker does kiss the girl. There is a scene where Steve Zahn and Leelee, I think Steve Zahn and Leelee talk a bit. Because I watched the theatrical cut, because that's for the request. I should have watched the other cut just to be more fresh in my mind. But I think Steve Zahn talks with Leelee. So at least maybe a little bit that was brought up earlier between them is settled, maybe not. But this one means like stuff is brought up is a bit more settled in this ending. And they watch Rusty Nail like in the hospital, and he dies, he flatlines. And then the last line Steve Zahn goes, "Can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually want to go home." And there's a guy that has had troubles with their dad, but he actually does want to go home. And the three of them exit out, and it's over. No sequel bait ending. Steve Zahn getting more of a redemption arc. To me, it's much more exciting the finale. And then they showed it, and apparently it looked like in the trivia, each time they had a screening, it was positive. But then they show this, and I don't know why they thought this was a better ending. I have no idea. Yes, of course, different tastes for different people. There's some people that say, yes, this theatrical ending is better. I disagree. And in the Blu-ray, I don't even know if the Blu-ray has the alternate endings. I don't think it does. Like the DVD, you could choose, or maybe it does, but it's separately. I don't. But again, on the DVD, you just click on it, and then when the icon appears, you hit it, and it cuts to that. To me, I'm like, fuck it. I just edited in the movie with that ending. I just thought it was much more satisfying with that ending. And in fact, you know what? I'll do this. In the link down below, I'll put a mega link to that cut for those who want to see it. For those who want to see it, I put it on the mega upload. I will put it in the info box, and maybe even, if I remember, in the comment section pinned. For those who want to download and watch it, be my guest. It's the rest of the movie's fine. I mean, it's the rest of the movie is regular, but then it's the disappointing the ultra ending. And yeah, you tell because the picture quality is a bit lower, and the voice of Rusty Nail. Like when they changed this, I guess they didn't have Ted Levine at that point. Like they made sure they did the edit they want, then they got Ted Levine. Because the voice of Rusty Nail is a bit different. That's really one only drawback to that alternate ending, is that they didn't put Ted Levine in that. And also you don't see Rusty Nail's face, which to me makes it more mysterious and more hidden. But overall, I do like Joyride. I think it's a good thriller. I think it's well shot. I think the cast do their jobs. Leelee Sobieski, she wasn't a damn... Well, I guess she was a little damsel in distress. But she didn't feel weak. She didn't feel useless. I think all three of them worked well together. Yeah, I think the first half, with the build-up and the two of them on the road, it just had a bit more of that stronger pacing to it. And the theatrical cut, I don't really care for the motel stuff. And in the finale, like I said, I much prefer the alternate ending, alternate cut. Ted Levine's a great voice. And overall, it's a good thriller. It is definitely a good thriller. It's definitely worth a watch for anyone who likes movies in the tradition of the Hitcher and Breakdown and so forth. So, that's Joyride. And yeah, the sequels didn't need sequels. And then when this film came out, it wasn't like a blockbuster, but I guess it did okay enough to get sequels. But yeah, Joyride. I do wonder if it had that alternate ending, if its reception would be better, worse, like in the long run. I'd be curious about that. But with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.